Welcome back, and this is our first in the sewing side of showing you all the fun features of the Husqvarna Viking Designer Ruby 90. So it's set up a little bit weird because we've got all our cameras in a different position, so hopefully we'll be able to show you up close and personal exactly what is the fun features that this machine has and some of the amazing technology that we have with the Husqvarna Viking Designer Ruby 90. Okay everyone, we're going to go through these little switches here and I'll see if I can get you a better angle. Oops, don't want to push it too far, I don't want to push it off the edge. Okay, so let's see if we can get a nice angle here. So here is your needle threader button, go back to the beginning of the stitch button. This is your speed, this is your lights. You can make them brighter or dimmer depending on what you're sewing, right here on the front. Your stop go button, you've got your fix, your stop, your foot up, foot down, needle up, needle down, scissors and reverse. So they're all here on the front of your control panel, just here. Okay, so we have the front styling here. We have a little guide that if you want to wind your bobbin through the needle, so you can take it from here up to here, and your bobbin winding is on the one side down here at the bottom. You can't, it's just out of shot, but we'll show you that. Touchscreen, as we said, I'll see if I can get a better shot of that. All right, so this is our touchscreen. We can just get into sewing just by pressing here. Otherwise, we're going to show you through the front screen. So the front screen here, we've got our Wi-Fi symbol, and then we've got cloud. So I'm logged on, as you can see, I'm logged into cloud. So that's why it's white. If I was logged out, this would be grey. So that way you know whether you're logged in or not. What generally happens with Wi-Fi is that once you've signed in the first time and you've put your network ID and your password, it will automatically look for it next time you come in. Now this machine, because it's Wi-Fi enabled, will be able to do its own updates. So if it finds when it's logged on to the internet through Wi-Fi that there is an update available, it'll automatically check the server, and if there is an update that is available for it, it will go through and ask you if you'd like to download the update, and then it'll ask you to install it. We're going to go back to this screen here. We'll show you exactly what we've got here. Because I'm connected to the web, we have access to the MySewNet blog. Okay, so when you purchase your machine and you go to register it, you'll be registering through MySewNet, and that gives you access to the blog, and it gives you access to the updates, and it gives you access to your designs that you're going to send to the machine, which is really nice. So along here, underneath the blog section, we have this section where it's got sewing, quilting, embroidery, knowledge center. Okay, so if I was wanting to do quilting, this is sectioned some things out and some examples for me. Also, it's about applique and free motion quilting and piecing, and there's a lot of little information pieces inside the machine for you. In sewing, we're basically, the sewing advisor is the section here on top where it's got these symbols that represent fabric. So as you can see, these fabrics have got their name written underneath. So this represents stretch light, stretch medium, and it goes through and we can select all the different types. So if I was doing woven medium, which is like a quilty fabric, and then it comes down and it asks me to select the technique underneath. So these are techniques underneath. And then underneath here we have some videos that are able to guide us through this procedure. Okay? Now, I'm going to bring that to the top of the screen so that you can see how this works. So this is step 1. This has got 1 step. If I chose something else, if I said I wanted woven medium and I wanted to do a theme stitch, like I have a theme, I'm going to bring this screen up to the top and it's going to show me the steps I need to do for my tutorial on how to use those particular items. Okay, so that's really neat. And what will happen is when I've selected those, the content is over here, already selected in, when I've selected that particular item that I want to look at with the theme stitches, it loads them all in here for me so that you don't have to go looking for them. Okay, so that's a little bit about sewing. Embroidery, basically we've got different types of embroidery here, like specialty hoops, additional techniques, basic embroidery, applique embroidery, patchwork and quilting, cut work, all those kinds of things. So if you wanted to learn a new technique, you could. And underneath, we've got basic embroidery selected. If I open this up, it's going to give me all of the items, or all of the items that are basic embroidery, okay, out of the sampler. And you have a tutorial that runs along the bottom, just so that you can do this step by step and understand exactly how to do any one particular project. So it steps you through all of the process to get you going with your embroidery. So if you're new to embroidery, or you're new to sewing, or you're new to different types of embroidery, then these techniques are really, really good for you to learn how to do some of those things. Now, it could be a process that you haven't done for a little while. It could be a sewing technique that you have never done before. At least you have some guidance, like it's a teacher sitting here with you saying, okay, this is the next step, and helping you along the way with information. So that is a little bit about those techniques. So then we have the Knowledge Centre. Now the Knowledge Centre is a brilliant resource that's available on the machine, and it's got lots of information in here. I'll see if I can get the right angle. So setting up the machine, it tells us how to thread the needle, how to use the automatic needle threader, how to thread for twin needles, how to insert the bobbin, how to wind the bobbin and put on your sensor Q foot. Setting up your accessories, it talks about some of the accessories that are available for the machine. When we're setting up for embroidery, it gives you all these tutorials. So, you know, these are all animated with instructions so that you have to rely on your user manual less. However, these are really visual information, and some of them have videos attached. So you can really get up close and you can learn lots about your machine. Okay, so that's the fun thing. So you can go step by step through these tutorials and you're going to learn lots, which is why I'm not going to go through every single item on the machine, because they are all here in these tutorials. So threading the needle thread, you know, all those kinds of things. So all the basic ones, winding a bobbin, for example. So it shows you the step, and then it's going to show a video. So like I would be showing you, it's going to show you exactly what to do in the video. So in this one, we're winding a bobbin. And it's going to go and show you exactly where you need to what you need to do, and with the automation on. So they're really fun ones that you can watch, and you won't get lost, because all these tutorials you can come back and watch again and again and again. Okay? So there's lots of fun ones. If you're wondering about the winding from the needle, again, we have a video here that shows you exactly what you need to do. And with the automation and animation, it makes a lot of sense once you're in front of your machine, so that you can do exactly what it does. So you can stop and go and enjoy those tutorials and learn something a little bit more. So in here as well, in the Knowledge Center, we have a stabilizer guide for those of you with who are still learning about your stabilizers. We've got tearaway, we've got cutaway, we've got batting, you know, fusible fleece, water solubles. Now these are all the Inspira brand. So if you, we sell some of the Inspira brands. So we also sell other stabilizers which are very similar as well. But this will give you an idea, and if you touch this, it will tell you where to use it and how to use it, and you might learn a little bit more about the types of stabilizers and where to use them. So that's stabilizer guide. The quick start guide is, like we've said, we had all those things about getting started. The step-by-step workbook, there's some different topics that you can go in and learn more about the features of the machine, okay? And there's some cute designs in there that you can create for yourself. And, you know, there's lots of, this is really a learning element of the machine, that you can use a workbook, that you can do this at your own pace at home and go through and enjoy that learning process and discover more about your machine. Sewing instructions, well, there's projects. So this one is the leatherwork bag with cut work. There's a few projects in here that the people at Husqvarna have put in for us. And basically it loads the design for us. So that's really, really cool. Then cushions, there's a couple of cushions in there. So that's really fun. Then we've got accessory guide. So this tells us about some of the embroidery accessories that are, you know, extra purchases, and it shows you how they work and what you can do with them. And it includes hoops and felting and a few others, cut work and all those kinds of things, and explains the accessories. And the quilt ones as well, it's got the binders, and it talks about the ruler foot and all those. So lots of information in there in the Knowledge Center. So you got lots of information with your machine. If you want to look at your user guide, this is the project guide. We're going to go out of that now. So even if you want to bypass all of this because you just want to sew something and you want to, you know, create something of yourself, you can press the Start New button down here at the bottom, and it will bring up the sewing stitches if you're in sewing mode, or it'll bring up the embroidery on the other mode. So on the screen, We have whatever fabric we've chosen here, which was woven medium. We did that in the sewing advisor. So we're going to go back there. So woven medium was chosen. Okay, but if you were using something else, you could choose it. So if it was a heavyweight woven fabric, it would change up here, and it would change the stitch length and the tensions and things like that automatically. Tells me the needle size to put in. If there was a particular type of needle, it would tell me, and it tells me the stitch number that was chosen, which is A2. Okay, tells me the foot to put on, which is the B foot, and basically all this has been set up at the bottom. So down here on the bottom, we've got needle position. So you can see that needle position moving to the left, needle position moving to the right. We have our stitch length, and we have our tension, and if we've got a little toggle there, that's your presser foot pressure. Okay, so wherever there's a little dot and a slider, that means it's another option that you have underneath this menu. Along the bottom, we have, well, I'm going to show you this one up here, and I'll show you why. If you're not quite sure what things are, this little question mark is your quick help. That's your settings, and this is your toggle into embroidery. So if at any time you are not sure, activate the quick help, and then you can come down, whoops, wrong camera, and touch, and it'll tell you what this is. And this is save. This is smart save, which means that when you turn your machine back on next, it will remember it at that point where you are and how to load it. Then you've got down here, this is a program to do your sequencing. And then also down the bottom here, you've got free motion techniques, your user guide, your project manager, and this is loading your user guide. Now the user guide is the book that's open with the magnifying glass. Okay, so that's your user guide. This one beside it with the book that's open is your project creator. So this is your user guide. You can search from A to Z. You can go from up here, you can search from A to Z if you know what you're looking for. Here you can go by the tabs or the chapters in the book, or you can search by name. So your user guide is on the machine. Now, with your user guide, if the machine is updated at any particular point in time, your user guide may change. Okay, so if for some reason you're looking in your user guide and you're not quite sure and something doesn't seem quite right, you can go onto the husqvarnaviking.com.au site and look up the Ruby 90, and you may want to download a new copy. And I've done one here because I go through and I read them from cover to cover. So because my demo model, I like to keep the user manuals pristine. So I go through and read my manual and learn all about the machine, and I can write notes and do all that kind of stuff with a downloaded copy. So you can print that out and keep it in with your notes. So as you learn your machine, you've got a good working copy. So looking at your screen, it is very, very large, and it gives you a good view as to what you're looking at. So at the bottom, whenever there's a text element, the typewriter keypad will come up so that you can type in what you need to type in, okay? And there's symbols and there's, you know, all these different uppercase, lowercase, all those kinds of things. So you'll find all of the symbols and everything there. Next element is thinking about your thread path. Now, when you're thinking about your thread path, I really want you to go through that quick start guide on the machine because it illustrates everything beautifully, and you can stop and go as many times as you like. Now, if you're watching this and thinking, well, why don't you just thread it and away you go, I will give you the thread path of how to thread it, and just to show you how great and how simple it is. So your thread would go on one of these guides. Come up to the thread tree. You can't see that because it's in the wrong way. Okay, the thread tree. Thread on this one, click it in. This is your first one, thread path, and then you follow the contour of the back of the machine down, up and over, and down again. So nothing out of the ordinary as far as threading goes. The fun thing with the threading is you've got an automatic needle threader. Now I'm going to change cameras so that we can get a little bit closer. Okay, so the thread comes down and comes down, up and around, up and over, down and to the needle. So then what happens is, this is automatic and we've got a needle threader button up here. Okay, so generally I'll show you how the function works. And that generally threads the needle for you. Okay, so the idea is it comes down, clicks across, cuts off and threads. Now you can get a better view of this in that user manual on the machine with the automation and the animation. So that way you get a nice close-up view. You can stop at any point and check it and go through and thread your needle correctly. You've only got to do it a couple of times and it'll become second nature. All right. The really great features about this machine that I would recommend if you're thinking about one: lighting, the ability to get your whole hand in underneath this needle to change, you know, this needle area so that you can change your needle, change your feet, all those kinds of things. Really wide stitch plate, and it comes with the straight one as well. The ability to change the lighting, and you can see how bright that is. It's knocking out my cameras. And there's no shadow all the way up. So it's all over the needles, all the way up, and you can see just a little bit of those lights all the way under the throat space. So if you are challenged like I am with glasses, then having that is really, really an amazing light source, so that you don't have to have any other lights on your machine. Lovely free arm. So it comes off quite long. So all you dressmakers out there, you will love this. And you know, it's easy to get your feet on and off because you have this special tool, which I put all back in the accessories, which is this multi-purpose screwdriver. There's a little screwdriver at the end of it, and that's to help you remove the stitch plate. But this guy on this side is here to help you undo the screw for the needle, so you can drop it out. And then turn back up again. Okay? And so this end will help you undo the shank so that you can take the needle, the foot off and put your ankles back on. So that's a really cool tool. And it's a little bit bigger so you can get your hands on it. For those of you who've got a little bit of arthritis in your fingers, it just makes it a little bit bigger for you to hold on to. The accessory trays, really big as we saw before, but it's just got a nice profile so that you can see down over the top, which is really nice because you know you get a good view down into that needle area without having to sort of stoop down. So So we're going to go through some of the fun sewing stitches that are in the Ruby 90. Now there's loads and loads of stitches in here, and if you like heirloom, all those, there's fun ones that you can play with. Okay, so I'm going to give you a view of this screen. Hopefully I can get close enough without too much glare. So this is my, to go back to this screen, I go to my start menu. Okay, so wherever I am, I can go back to the start, and this is the screen that will appear. Okay, so if I just want to come in and I want to start new, come down to the bottom and press start new. And what will happen is, in sewing mode, all of these are my stitches. I can either swipe to the left to go between menus, or I can scroll up to see all the different stitches within that menu, or I can scroll along here and select a menu. All right. So all these menus have like a representation of stitches here, but if I swipe across, I can see that these are up here are crafting stitches or picture stitches, and I can go through and it will tell me what type of stitches. But you've got to look for the menus, because there may be more on there than what's listed initially. Okay, so just make sure that you check them out to make sure that you haven't missed any. Okay, so if you swipe through, you can see all the different stitches there. Now if I go through this way along the bottom, I touch the menu and then it'll come up on the screen. So touch down here and then it will appear up here. So there's many stitches there. If you've been a Husqvarna owner for quite a few years, then there'll be some stitches here that are very familiar to you, and there's loads of fun stitches in the machine. If you are looking for stitches, this is your stitch menu. If you're looking for fonts, this is your sewing font menu, and this is if you're connected to My Sewnet and you might have some stitches loaded in there, you can load it from there. That's my Sewnet there at the moment. Okay, so you can save to My Sewnet as well, and it will be saved in the cloud for you. All right, so I've got a varied sort of array of stitches in there. So what this is going to tell us is here, it gives us an explanation of the stitch. Okay, so this is a satin edge stitch and it tells me what it's for. And up here it's telling me what needle to put in, because I've selected that I'm using a heavy fabric, and it tells me to use some stabilizer. So it gives me a little bit of help here on the top. Down here, all these are your width, your length, and this funny symbol here, that is your thread metering. So anything other than a straight stitch, if I chose a straight stitch, this symbol changes to almost like to be like two symbols and the thread running through the middle. If I change to anything else, this thread metering system comes up with the dots on it, and you'll see that up here on the front of the machine. It says Deluxe Stitch System. So that's the new thread delivery system from Husqvarna Viking, which is really great and get some really good results with that. And it has a little toggle there, so it could be press a foot pressure, could be increased or decreased. All right. The same with this one here. It's got a little toggle on it, and that is stitch position. If it was narrower, I could change the position of that stitch to the left, right, and okay, so I can move the position of the stitch. If I reselected this stitch again, it brings back the defaults. Okay. If you want to save it, you can save it into the heart. We can mirror image, side to side, up and down. And so we've got all those functions here nice and clear on the front of the screen. So it only shows you those elements that you can use that stitch for. One of the interesting things I found with the Designer Ruby 90 is that it's grouped together all the stitches that can do really interesting things, like there's tapering, there's 4-way stitches, there's 8 directional type stitches, so you can do sideways motion and all those kinds of things. So I want to show you a couple of those just so that you can see a little bit better. Okay, so within these menus down the bottom here where it's got Q, and you know, it goes from all through the letters, we get to Q, and these are decorative and tapering stitches. So what happens, as soon as I select one, we see another item come active here, which is the taper, but you also see the stitch change from being squared off at the top to being at a 45-degree angle. So that 45-degree angle means that I could do 4 and make it like a square. Now I can do this with any of these particular stitches, and you can see from this one up here that these are all at round about that 45 degrees. But if I wanted to change that, all I'd need to do is go in here and I could say I want it as 120 degrees and 120 degrees at the bottom, and the stitch will change on the screen. I can turn it off at one end and have it on the other end, turn them both off, or leave it at a 45. Okay? And all I need to do, I can get a better view of that. But then all I need to go is go back to my stitch menu, and then I can change something else to another stitch and just see how that stitch is going to react to the tapering. Maybe something you've never done, but maybe it might be something interesting for you. Now that's in the Q menu, and we're going to go to R because there's some stitches already tapered in there. And as soon as we select these, they are, you can see some of them are already tapered on top. So they're called pictogram stitches, and they have satin elements in them and they repeat. So some of these are quite interesting, which would be great to have a few stitch outs of those. And then these ones here in the S menu are 4-way stitches. Now, because I've only selected the menu, nothing's changed on the screen until I select a stitch, okay? So what's going to happen with these is it's going to sew it 4 ways, and I press the reverse button to get it to change direction. So if I'd sew this one, it would sew that way first, touch reverse, where's reverse? Then it would sew in that direction, touch reverse, it would sew in that direction, touch reverse, and it would sew the opposite direction. Okay, so I can change which way I want it to stitch. Okay, and that happens for all these stitches here. So that's 4 ways. But the other one I've got here are 8-way stitches or omnidirectional. So if I chose a straight stitch to go down 45 down to the right, I just touch the arrow and it will set the machine to do that stitching. If I wanted a reinforcing stitch, a triple stitch, you can see that that is changing. It's a straight stitch, but it's going in one of 8 different directions. So that's a really interesting way to use your machine if you were looking for something that could do backwards at a 45. If you didn't want to do too much turning of your fabric or things like that, you can do it with this particular menu. Okay, so with a straight stitch or a reinforced straight stitch. Okay, so that's really neat. So lots of interesting stitches here on the Designer Ruby 90. So many that you need to go and have a look and discover them all for yourselves. There's some information on the in the manual. You can have a look at that online if you'd like, or if you've got one, you can go through, and in the stitch overviews, there's some stitch overviews in the manual that you can go through, and it will explain to you about your buttonholes. It'll explain to you a lot of the utility stitches, and be able to do that for you so that you can see exactly what that stitch is for. And then the stitch menu, we have an overview of all the stitch menus as well. So, you know, it says A is utility, B is applique, C is heirloom. So it cuts down your search time and you'll get an idea of what all those stitches are and what menus that they're in, okay? Lots of information on screen when you're going through the sewing side. So I hope you've enjoyed a little browse through, a little stroll through the Ruby 90s screens. When we come back, the next episode will be on the embroidery side.